Let's go on to the LessWrong posts.
All right. The mind projection fallacy. This one is one that I think is quick to communicate and one that was easy for me to remember. I reread it for fun, but
And it wasn't the one that I thought it was. I was thinking of the
typical mind fallacy,
Yes, I was thinking of the typical mind fallacy.
which is related.
It is,
Yeah.
but not quite.
And I loved his example, of the ye old science fiction stories where, it's got a big green alien monster carrying away a hot girl in a torn dress.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why is he taking the hot girl? Why is it taking the hot girl away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because the authors thought that the alien would think that she's sexy. It's just like sexy is a property of her, and that's a thing that things like. Did I do that right?
You did that right, but I kind of have my doubts. Like, obviously, I didn't meet those authors or cover artists or whoever it was, so I can't interview them and ask them. But, like, that is such a... Maybe I'm typical minding again here by saying that is so dumb that no one could actually think that. I am more of the opinion that the sexy lady on the cover is there for the benefit of the viewer, the audience. They know that a human male is going to be looking at this, and so like the alien probably just grabbing the closest human they can. They're like, that human looks tasty, I'm going to run off with it. In this particular instance, the closest human was a woman with a torn dress, and in the male viewer, that invokes more feelings of outrage and protectiveness than if it was like a guy or something. And so that's why that alien taking that person was chosen as the cover. But I don't think that the person who made the cover was thinking the alien thinks that she's sexy and the alien grabbed her specifically because she's sexy and it's going to ravish her. It's just the human that the alien happened to grab.
Yeah, I think importantly, Yudkowsky, I think, explicitly says that the author didn't think that the alien thought that. It just didn't even occur to the author to think what the alien thought. But I think you make a good point. Like King Kong, whatever, grabs the damsel for the hero to rescue or whatever, and she happens to be pretty because she's on TV or whatever. It could just be a device for the viewer, and it's not like Kong found her sexy or something, right?
In this post, I think Eliezer is specifically saying that the alien is presumed to find the woman sexy as well, because he comments that oddly enough, the aliens never go after men in torn shirts. He does quote that the person making the cover would probably think, therefore a bug-eyed monster will find human females attractive. So I do think that is what he is saying specifically, and I think I would wager that he's probably wrong. I don't know.
At least in some cases, he's got to be right.
That's true. I guess there are some really dumb people out there.
Well, and for all I know, this I maybe if we reversed image searched this picture that's in the post, it would link to a story that's explicitly about I'm going to take her to ravish her or something, right?
Right.
I'm sure that shit exists. So some authors were that I don't want to use the word dumb at all. Just they weren't thinking in that on the level of would this actually make sense, right?
Were they though, or were they just the Chuck Tingles of their time?
It's hard to say.
Okay, that's fair.
We'll have to find some, but more. I think generally though, the mind projection fallacy it is, and this is in the post as well. It generalizes as an error.
Right.
It's the kind of thing that it's the argument above the real meaning of the word sound.
Yeah, that you think what exists in your mind is a thing that actually exists out in the world.
Right. And this gets it when I try to phrase it too much differently, I just start leaning really directly into the next post about the quotation is not the reference. So I'm down to just jump to that if you want.
Let's do it.
All right. He tries to paint it with a few fun examples. Well, a few examples. Your mileage may vary if you think they're fun, but I don't know. Which example do you want to start with? The Morning Star, or maybe the A and B.
Yeah, the A and B is, I think, a nice place to start, where he says in classical logic, the operational definition of identity is that whenever A equals B is a theorem, you can substitute A for B in any theorem where B appears, which is true. Whenever you see 2 plus 2, you can replace that with 4. And wherever you see 4, you can replace that with 2 plus 2. They're identical.
Yeah, legit. I'm with you so far.
Okay. That doesn't generalize to beliefs, which is kind of what the mind projection fallacy is about, that if the morning star and the evening star are both Venus. So if you know that, you know they're the same thing. But if the person who doesn't know that wouldn't necessarily know that they're the same thing. And so the morning star and the evening star are two separate things for them. And you couldn't necessarily, if you're talking to them, replace one with the other and expect for there to be a coherent communication, because they wouldn't know that.
Right. And this is, part of typical minding, maybe, tangential to mind projection fallacy, assuming that we're talking about the same thing when we're actually not, right?
Yeah.
You could sub in, if you squinted even harder, maybe the word sound, and have that debate this kind of way too, right?
I mean, I almost think that one of the easier ways to display this is that some people just think that certain types of sex are gross. And they like, obviously, when back in the 50s, like gay sex was gross, right? That was just the gross kind of sex. And it didn't occur to people that some people think it's actually really fucking hot because they're gay. They would just think, like, what is wrong with these weird perverts that like gross sex? And it's that it's not a property of the sex. It's a property of the people experiencing it, whether they find it to be gross or not gross. Like, the sex itself isn't,
Okay, yeah.
as long as no one's getting hurt.
Right, yeah, for sure. That makes sense. What I'd like to hear about his next example was, because then he talks a little bit about typed and untyped programming languages, but he says, here's a simpler version. 2 plus 2 equals 4 is true. And so you can put all that in parentheses. And if you want to run it, the reason I was distracted a moment ago is I just opened up the console in the browser here, and you can just write JavaScript directly. And what I had to do was just monkey with a smidge, because he's just using equals instead of equals equals, which is the syntax that 1 equals is assignment, 2 is checking for equality. And you can actually just cut and paste this, adding those extra equal signs, and it comes back true. So yes, all right, valid, right? What's fun about that is then what he tries to get at is like the quotation is not the referent. If you want to make sure that like we're not confusing what we're talking about, we can put quotations around the things that we're talking about. And the fun thing that it was just a nerd thing that jumped out at me is that if you put quotes around 2, 2, and 4 and true, it doesn't come back true, because you're comparing strings at that point and not numbers.
Right. Yeah.
And so as a matter of computer science and of thinking, it comes back false. I thought that was just kind of a fun little thing, but
That is really cool.
yeah. So trying to think of like the other main points to hit here.
Well, the other thing that he says, like with the quotes thing going, the morning star in quotes is like a belief about that star. It's the morning star. And he says that's not the same type of thing as the morning star, because the morning star is the planet Venus. So like the object, the morning star is the planet Venus, but the morning star in quotes is a belief that someone has. And they may or may not know that that star they're looking at is Venus. Those two things, in quotes and the actual object, are not the same thing. Beliefs are not planets. Beliefs live in brains. Planets live in space.
Yes, I like that, and that's an important tool to keep in mind when assessing your own beliefs, because you're less attached to a belief than you are a state of reality, right?
Yeah.
And this is a helpful technique that's been around for at least 15 years in the community. Is if you're having a semi-heated discussion with somebody, you could write down the actual thing you're discussing on a sticky note and just put it right in front of you. And we're talking about that. We're not talking about each other. We're not talking about, other things surrounding this. We're talking about the specific claim, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it helps not just keep your eye on the ball, but it helps keep things from getting like personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea, that the talk about the claim or the belief. He quotes Tarski here, in the Litany of Tarski is a famous one among rationalists. That I think the whole litany is, I wish to believe that snow is white, if and only if snow is white. He quotes here, snow is white, in quotes, is true if and only if snow is white, not in quotes. So in quotes, the belief snow is white is true if and only if the object snow is actually white, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I also just like when he reminds us that he's funny, because when he's talking about comparing beliefs to planets, like this is just hammering home the map territory distinction, but in a way that's coming at it from a different angle. So I appreciated it, but also I appreciate his humor. He says it's immensely helpful when one is first learning physics to keep track of one's units. It may seem like a bother to keep writing down cm and kg and so on, until you notice that A, your answer seems to be on the wrong order of magnitude, and B, it's expressed in seconds per square gram.
Awesome.
And yeah, so it's like, it's important to keep your eye on the ball and be mindful of the thing it is exactly that you're talking and thinking about. So
Yeah.
yeah, the notion of truth is quite different from the notion of reality.
Ooh, in what way?
Well, saying something is true compares a belief to reality. Reality doesn't need to be compared to anything to be real, right? Like,
I agree.
yeah, it's one of those things that, again, when put that way, it's kind of like, oh yeah, duh.
So true applies to beliefs.
Right. Only beliefs can be true or false. Reality just
Yeah.
is real, right?
Yeah.
True is a statement of my mind, not a statement of reality.
Right. And the statement in your mind can be true or false.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, he says, remember this next time someone claims that nothing is true.
I haven't heard that in a while, but this was during the heyday of the New Atheist Wars, so that was going around quite a bit.
Yeah.
Good times.
All right. Well, for next time, we will be reading Qualitatively Confused and Reductionism.
All right.